And Susan, we are live.
Oh, hello, Mr. Nuss. It's so
So,
great to see you, sweetie.
your friends should be able to see us public now on my
Okay.
Facebook
Yeah.
page. And I'm going to turn it on here and watch as well and make sure that we're being seen. Hey, Dawn has said hi. So, yay,
Okay.
it's working. All
Great.
right. So, Susan, good to have you here. I've known you for almost 20 years or something,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I first met you when I hired you to come out, and they wanted a tarot card reader at this point.
Correct. Correct.
So I call around, I get you, and I talk to you, and I said, "You're perfect," is that, you know, and you come out, and I've known you since then, and this is what everybody was blown away by. They
Uh-huh.
would sit down, I'd watch them, they'd sit down and they start talking to you, and they get up and go like, "Oh my God," you know? And and even the guy who hired me, I remember,
Right.
his wife was there, and
Correct. It was her school reunion, I think.
yeah, and one of their children too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And she did a reading with you, and they were totally blown away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
That was a lot of fun.
that was yeah. So I've known you since, and I've called you, and this is the thing that I really think is fascinating is the numerology and all of the things. Just some when I you asked me when my birthday was,
Right.
I give you the dates, and you go, okay, well, you're a this number and a that number, and then you describe me, and I'm like, how do you do that?
Oh. Well, and I remember at that particular gig, I was hired from 8 to 10, and I ended up leaving at 2 a.m. in the morning because there was such a long line. And then I just threw in some stuff for the maintenance workers or whatever who were watching.
So what is your I've talked to you about so many different things.
Right.
Uh,
Well, I come from about maybe 5 generations on both sides of my family that have the gift. And everyone who has the gift on both sides of my family, but myself and my daughter. And you haven't met my daughter, but
no, not yet.
you've heard of her.
Yes, and she met my daughter.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. Other than myself and her, everyone was in the medical profession. So they did their healing that way, but it was on the down low what we did. We're very Irish, I'm like 99.99% Irish. And they my father was a medical intuitive. He could, if you couldn't figure out why you weren't well, he could shake your hand and know exactly what they were missing. But he never told anybody. He did medical tests.
Mm.
My mother could, you know, uh, she could smell illness and death, and she was very clairvoyant. And I just lived in this house, and I thought everybody saw angels, and everybody knew things. And my parents were pretty funny because, it was kind of a conservative. I was Roman Catholic. You had to be on the down low with this, and my father would say, "Now, Susan, we don't talk about what you can see at school because, maybe you have better angels than others." That's how he was trying to. We don't want to hurt anyone's feelings.
Well,
Go ahead.
when somebody says, "What's an intuitive?"
Mm-hmm.
What how would you describe it, an intuitive? Because I think that in some cases there is a sort of a negative connotation on, like, when somebody says psychic or clairvoyant and that sort of thing, and especially from the church angle.
Right. Yeah. And I would say an intuitive is like a knowing. And that's like when you say, I have all the four clairs: clairvoyant, clairaudience, clairsentience, claircognizance. And clair means clear. So it's clear sight, clear hearing, clear feeling, clear knowing. And I do use the word psychic and medium, even though it creeps some people out, because it is what it is, you know. And but there's nothing. We all have a little percentage of intuitiveness or psychic ability. Some people are empaths, and they, you know, where you see that news story and you get sick to your stomach right away by it, and those people are empaths. And I just think you know, we can use, if we used a lot more of our intuitiveness that we were born with and came with, and kind of let go of living inside the box and live outside of the box, the world would be a better place.
Well, let me ask you, because I think this happens, and we've had these kinds of conversations a lot.
Yeah,
And I think that a lot of us are born with some of these gifts, but don't you think that parents have a way of squashing that gift in children as they get older?
absolutely. I'm going to tell a story. I know my daughter is going to be rolling her eyes when she listens to this. But, you know, just like my dad said to me, Susan, we're not going to tell everybody what you see or whatever. And you know, I had a brother and a sister, and I'm the only one, you know, with the gift. So it doesn't all travel all the way through. And so I went to Catholic school. I went out in Olney, Maryland. It was St. Peter's, and it was across the street from the hospital my dad worked at. And so I'm sitting there in religion class, and I'm just like shaking my head, because I do feel I'm the reincarnation of Mary Magdalene. So anyone out there, don't, you know. So I'm on the playground. I'm like barely 7. And I go, you know, Sister St. Margaret has it all wrong. And they go, what do you mean? And I go, well, I had Jesus' baby. I was married to him. This is what happened. And so the kids come running in, and they're going, sister, you know, Susan was married to Jesus, and this is what's really happening. And they'd look at me, and they would walk me across the street to my dad's office every day. And I'd put on a big, like, hospital coat of his and write prescriptions for all the nurses. And there was a letter. They said, give this to your father. And it was, Dear Dr. Martin, could you please have Susan refrain from telling the children she had Jesus' baby? And he looked at me and he laughed. He said, Susan, we've discussed this. And I said, but Dad, and he goes, you know, you just, we're ahead of everyone else. So let's just leave it at that. But he never squashed my, what I would tell him. And it was they didn't make a big deal about it. They just kind of went on, if that makes any sense. And I just feel very normal about it. You know, people will say to me, well, do you ever feel bad about your gift, or does it not at all? Not at all.
I want to give an example that I think is something that a lot of people have, like with their mother. And like when I was a kid, my mom, I would call my mom and she'd go, I was just thinking about you.
Yes.
You know, it's that kind of thing that we're talking about, but on a much larger scale.
Correct. And it's that's what I would call like clairsentience, and where all the senses are involved. And there actually is a scientific principle of this that is the quantum particle theory. And it's like anytime you've been in contact with a place or a person or a thing, they can have that feeling even if you're thousands of miles away. And that's where we get that. There actually is a scientific reason for that phenomenon that is intuitive.
Somebody once told me that if you pray for somebody, for example, and want to send somebody like a gift of energy, like, okay, I want to do this, it isn't something that travels over miles. It just instantly hits them. It
goes from heart to heart.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, and it's like if you talk to an angel or you pray or something, you know, you don't have to wait for it to come through the heavens.
No.
It just comes instantly.
Well, they actually did, and I love to put science in with this too. At NIH, there was studies done in the alternative medicine area, and they had people who were prayed for who didn't know they were being prayed for. They didn't want to be prayed for.
Mm.
And they had volunteers praying for these people who were refusing prayers, and they still got well as the people who were asking for prayers, if prayers were given. And there was a group of people who got no prayers, and they did not do as well at all.
So there is an energy that happens, in an energy exchange when you pray for somebody
Right.
to them that they may not even be aware of.
Correct. And
And
they don't need to.
and there's a couple of times when you've done some things for me. And I'm dead serious, where you would say, "Oh, I'm going to send you some light or something," and I would be walking, and all of a sudden I would feel like, "Wow, where'd that come from?"
Mm-hmm.
And I'm convinced, based on my experience, that that is something that you sent, or somebody's praying for me, or something. And what I think is sort of uh, frustrating for me is to think that I hear so many people kind of foo-foo all of that stuff away. Do you get that experience where, like, oh, come on, that's not really real? Do you get that a lot?
Well, okay. Most of the people who come to me, and so
Right.
if somehow, not that I don't want to be outed, but I don't impose myself on anyone. And then if people do feel, I've had a couple people recently that were maybe frightened by it or something, and I'm like, I'm not forcing this. If you ask me a question, I'll answer it, but we can also talk about TV shows, things like that. And it's like, why are you? I think people who fear that so much are fearing getting to know themselves and
Mm.
their inner self, because then maybe they'd have to take some responsibility and feel and know that there's something greater than them.
I would never have been that kind of guy.
No, not at all. Not at all.
You see me resist a few things.
Yes, yes, yes. But then you come around. You
Well,
do.
so it takes time sometimes.
Yes.
It takes time. Um, I when the other thing, along with all of this, I've talked to you about dreams. I've
Yeah.
talked to you about angels. I've
Yeah.
talked to you about astrology. So you're bringing a lot of different things into service. When I ask you about something, you've spent time studying astrology and numerology and angels and all that stuff. Is it all sort of the same? Is it all mixed together a little bit?
It's I guess I'm just fine wine with the jambalaya, if you
Mm.
kind of think of it. But it's um I've every year, every moment, things happen. And I just think I know I'm supposed to go in this direction, or like the thing I'm doing a lot of is meditative past life regressions and explaining simultaneous realities to people and stuff like that. The numerology, I feel, is real important because numbers are so important to the basis and understanding the angels. And I just and I've had my near death experiences, which expanded every time it expands your gifts more and more.
So, from what you just said, I've three different questions.
Okay, go. Sure.
Well, number one, I want to talk to you about your near death experience because you've described some of that to me.
Yes.
And I also want to explain the numerology, give an example. So, if I
Right.
give you my date, some people don't understand how you get the number.
Right. Okay.
If I give you my birth date,
Okay. Let's do it. Okay.
so my birth date is 6/10/1958.
Okay. 10 is a master number, that your birth energy. And what I do, I use Pythagoras's method, which is, he's the father of sacred geometry, everything. There are a zillion different methods of numerology, but he's the first. Why reinvent the wheel? And so your birth energy is a one, because the 1 plus 0 is 1. And that's Archangel Michael. And he has been with you in all of your lifetimes, present, past, future, to be. And he protects you. He gives you the confidence, because you do have a lot of confidence, but you need it built up just a little, And he has protected you from a lot of stuff out there in the universe, a lot of ickiness that has come your way. And he is your gladiator, your protector. He's got his sword out there. Your attitude number that I would look at, and that's how you let people see you and how they see you, etc., is a 7. And that's the 6, the month of June, plus the 1. And that's Archangel Metatron. And that means that you are meant, no matter what happens, no matter what pandemic or whatever, you're meant to succeed in business. One way or the other, you're a winner. You focus, you prioritize. But the one thing I would tell you is don't ruminate so much, Jeff. Take the ruminating down. Okay. None of this ruminating, for God's sakes. We've got to give it up. I have an expression, being Roman Catholic. I give it up for Lent, and Lent is 365 days a year. So that's what you need to do, especially to help you get through this. I think you're doing fabulously. Your personal year and angel for just this year, we're in a 4 world year, which is a teaching learning year. And it's kind of apropos.
Just for a minute, how do you get the 4 learning year? What?
Okay, because we're in 2020, 2 plus 2 is 4.
Oh, okay.
And that's Archangel Zadkiel, and I call him like the professor. So this pandemic and this stuff that's happening with the Black Lives Matter and everything is so appropriate, because we've got, Zadkiel is like shaking us by the shoulders and saying, are you people ever going to learn? And I think sometimes spending the time alone, quarantine, it makes the air cleaner. We're thinking better. We're becoming hopefully kinder, nicer, gentler people. So the 4 in the world year, if I add to your attitude number there, Archangel Raphael, it's a year for healing for you. Foundation building and healing, because from what you're doing in this year, next year is going to be Gabriel coming out there, and it's going to be like just a red letter year for you. It's going to be all, abundance, prosperity, moving forward, not looking back whatsoever. And then let me see, there's this. And give me because when I do the numbers, they all fly out of my head. What's your year of birth again?
1958.
Okay, so that's 19. And you've got a 3 life path, and that's taking the 10 from the 19 to the 17, and then adding that together. And so you've got Gabriel there. You're meant to be in entertainment. You are. You're meant to be writing stuff, doing entertainment, everything that you're doing. And if you can just focus and prioritize, use the best of Metatron, but not ruminating. Just, sometimes breathing. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Do nose breathing. That's the best. I was with a client today, and they were breathing through their mouth, and it's like use the, you can do this alternate nose breathing, and then do it for the other nasal passage. That's really calming. But it's supposed to be a fabulous, fabulous year for you in 2021. 2021 will be a 5-year. Now, the number 5, there are no bad numbers or good numbers, just like there are no bad or good astrological signs. But in next year, the 5-year, we want to all be flexible and spontaneous. And we want to take any drama, trauma, or people that throw us under the bus. We need to step away. We need to be like Teflon and let them slip off of us. But Michael is there to protect you from all the things that made you feel small or weak or whatever. And, you know, your aura around you right now, that there's a lot of, you've got, it isn't just your blue background, but you've got a lot of purples. And you've got this golden, whitish, yellowish that I can see. And that's, you know, especially on the career path. What you're doing now and you're going to be continuing doing is going to really transform things.
So you get all of that from the numbers.
From your date of birth. And I've actually had a client who had the same date of birth, but I will get different things, even though their dates of birth are the same. You know, I don't give the exact same reading for them.
Because it feels different. There's something that comes along with that. Yeah. And then somebody asked if they keep seeing the numbers 111 over and over, what does that mean?
That means, well, 111, if I put it together, it's a 3, which is a abundance, prosperity, Gabriel, moving forward. And so I would say it's like ready, set, go. So what are you waiting for? And 111 is also, your angels are there. They've got your back. So do it, you know, you know, kind of like the Nike thing, just do it.
So I've been thinking a lot about the angels thing, and I've never been able to see them, right? Or feel them. But can you, have you, like right now, you can see through the screen, right? And are you able to see an aura? Because I know people can see auras, and
well, those are the colors I was telling you. I'm seeing.
Yeah, and I've never been able to do that.
If you see a movie, what makes you love or hate the movie? Is it what you're seeing on the screen? Is it the dialogue you're hearing? Is it the feeling? Or is it just you can't explain it? Which one of those is the first thing?
Well, sometimes it's all of them at the same time.
Okay. What's the most, if you're reading a book, and what makes you love or hate the book? Is it the words on the page? Is it
the emotions?
Okay, so it's the clairsentience. And so what I would tell you, Archangel Raguel, Raguel, the EL at the end of angels' names means of God. So, and it's like ragu spaghetti sauce with an EL for this angel. He's the angel of relationships, but also clairsentience, which is feelings. So for you, I
want to make sure we're back. My thing just went dead for a minute.
Okay. We back?
I think so. Hang on.
Okay.
Broadcast interrupted. Let's make sure it comes back. Okay, I think we're back.
Okay.
Okay, I think we're good. Now go ahead.
That's a sign. The angels are saying, listen.
Okay.
You know, and Archangel Raguel is also the angel of feelings and the clairsentience relationships. And I think what I would suggest to you or anyone who has that issue is to just let go and allow yourself to breathe and feel bit by bit. You don't have to suddenly start hearing angels or whatever. You know, before I understood all the angels, etc., I had an incident where I would say, I've had 3 incidences where I was so stubborn and not paying attention. The angels had to come down in human form, for God's sakes, and say, Susan, okay, before I listened. So I would just soften your heart a little bit. Not that it's hard, but just allow yourself to trust and to believe, because they're only here for good. They have no judgment whatsoever, and they're there as a guidance. I don't believe that dead relatives are angels. I think they work with the angels or they send the angels to you. But there's a saying that every time God, he, she, or it laughs, an angel is born. So I would think of it. And so what I would tell you to do is to write a letter of what to Archangel Michael, Meteran, and Gabriel, and put what you want. How would you like it? And I believe they'll come to you in music. Okay? Because that is your super gift, and that's where you're going to be feeling it and feeling it. And I think that through music and hearing sounds, and then when you're out in nature, you will start to connect. I see them full force and everything, but not everybody sees it the same way.
Do you think sometimes people choose not to, or they don't believe, or they may see something but discount it or disregard it?
Absolutely, all the time. Some of them is they're scared. Some of it is they're mad because they think, well, this can't be true, or whatever. And
we've been taught from church that no, it doesn't happen in our lives.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I was so lucky. I had these parents where they just, they encouraged me to believe, and they just said, just keep it on the down. Now I can talk about it, but
right.
It didn't go over well with Sister St. Margaret.
So I told you this story, and this is something that you and I have talked about a lot too, are the parallel universes and other dimensions. So,
oh yeah, my interstellar world.
Yeah. So I had this experience one time where I had incense, and I told you this, so I'm going to tell it to people here.
Okay.
I used to burn incense, and I stuck some incense in a plant and lit it. And I turned and went to another plant, stuck some incense in there, lit it. And then I turned around to blow the flame out on the incense behind me, and the incense had disappeared.
Wow.
Do you remember me telling you that story? I mean,
yeah,
I freaked out. I mean, I'm not a guy. I'm a guy that believes, like, I think it can happen, but I've never seen it.
Yeah.
And you told me that someone from another dimension
correct
came in and just took it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm going like, no way, that but I cannot deny that it disappeared.
I know it. Things vanish for me all the time, off and on. And then I had a client, and I think the story is on my website. And her husband passed. She was a big shot up on Capitol Hill, and she was wearing his wedding ring. And she went to a strip mall to get the Jiffy Lube done in the car, and it flung off. Everyone saw it. It was rolling around. Nobody could find it. She called me up, and she was hysterical. She lost Stewie's ring. And I said, do you have a bread box? And she said, I just bought a bread box a couple of weeks ago. I said, is there a loaf of bread in it? And I told her to cut the loaf of bread, and the ring fell out of it.
Are you kidding?
I'm not kidding. It's on my website, the story. Yeah. And that's for real. I mean, she's a big shot Dem, who's, I'm not going to say her name, but has worked with everybody on both sides of the aisle. And things like that happen all the time. Sometimes things just vanish. Sometimes I think they misplace them to, like, maybe my car keys get misplaced, and someone would say, oh, that's carelessness. But actually, when I checked, there was a big accident on the Beltway. And if I'd left at the time I would have been stuck in it, or maybe in it. So
I just want everybody to know that you live near Washington, D.C.
Oh yes,
And
I live in the newly created swamp. It wasn't a swamp.
right. So, Susan has a lot of people that she knows that are in and around government. But I just want to have a story that I had with keys at Joshua Tree.
Oh wow, yeah. I
So I I had a set of keys
mm-hmm.
that I somehow dropped somewhere. I traced my path at night with a flashlight, and it for 2 hours looking, I could not find the keys. And then somebody told me a story that things happen there. It, they just
Yeah,
disappear, then reappear.
it's true.
And I swear to God, I'm walking back after like 2 hours. I walk back and right out laying in the middle of the open. Had they been there the whole time, I would not have missed them. There they were laying.
Yeah.
I,
I have things like that happen. My cousin who is the same, she's in Atlanta, the same gift as I have. She lost. She was very ill, and she took her wedding ring off. That was atrociously expensive, and it suddenly vanished. It was like beside the bed. She wasn't moving and getting out, and her friends were going, well, maybe one of the workers came in and stole it while you were asleep. I said, no. I said, and about 3 months later, I said, look in your third drawer down. And she goes, oh, I haven't opened that drawer in 10 years. And it was old bras of hers, and it was found in that drawer.
and how do you get that message, or is it a voice, or you just a thought? How does that come to you?
I try to, close my eyes. I close my eyes a lot. So if I'm closing it on this thing here, I'm like intuitively talking to you. I'll close my eyes and I'll try to visualize. I'll try to hear. I'll try to ask the angels. I love St. Anthony Tony, and Tony is like, I tease, he's like a little greedy saint. He's the saint of lost items, lost things. And I'll say, Tony, I'll put $1 in the poor box if you just have it show up. And sometimes I wrote an article once years ago, maybe 30 years ago, that was published that, St. Anthony is this greedy little thing for charities. He takes your stuff and then you promise to, make a donation to charity, and it shows up. But I think sometimes things just get caught in other dimensions, and it eventually shows up.
Is there, do you know a specific number of dimensions, or are there just it's in flux? I mean, what does
I
that feel like?
think, well, I know there's way beyond, there's a multiverse. And I would think that there's at least between 5 to 10 dimensions, at least. I mean, I couldn't even, but we're in a multiverse.
And the other, I'm trying to just touch on so many different things. The parallel universe,
Yes.
is that part of the multi dimensions?
Well, in like if you're in a really bad time right now, or something's going on in a relationship, I would tell clients to go to the parallel universe where you're not having that disagreement. And you concentrate. It's a visualization, a mental thing. And there is a parallel universe. When things are going bad, another universe they aren't. And if you concentrate on it enough, you can shift that energy to create the reality you really want. And there are simultaneous realities where I'm probably blowing people's minds, but okay, think of your soul as a blooming onion. All right, you can't eat that all yourself. So there's an example. A couple of years after my mom died, I was up in New York with my daughter Rosie, and we were at Tony DiNapolo's on the Upper East Side. And it was my birthday celebration, and I was starting to teach the simultaneous realities, and the parallel universe is really hard. And there was this table of Broadway people who I didn't recognize, but I could tell who they were: producers, directors, actresses there. And towards the end, I saw the apparition of my mother further in the back, but this woman came up to me and she said, "I wanted to sing for you for your birthday, but my table wouldn't quiet down." And I realized there was this aura came over. Um, she was maybe 20 years younger than my mom would have been. My mom would have been 85. She was about 65. And she was the simultaneous reality. Her soul, my mom had always, she came from Shenandoah, Pennsylvania, and couldn't dance or sing or whatever, came to DC, became a nurse. And this woman was doing what she had always dreamed of doing and couldn't do, and went to New York and made it. But that was 20, when my mom was 20, yawning for that, this woman got born. And part of my mother's soul was in her. And that happens all the time.
Mm.
If you had wanted to be an oil painter, there's someone out there, male or female, that's achieving something you thought, well, I can never do that now. But that's a simultaneous reality. So I hope I haven't gone off the beaten track with you.
No, it's fantastic. So what I would say to people who may not want to believe or hesitate to think there's really something to this. I've had personal experiences with you and a couple of other people.
Right.
Knowing that experiences that you all have had, and then similar things I've had, I'm going, okay, there really is something. If you take any time at all, you can't deny.
You can't make it up.
No, it's just like the incense leaving.
Yeah.
I mean, that for me, that was the first time I go, okay, there is definitely some there's something else.
There's something, and it's but it's just anytime I've had someone work on, they're in this situation, and I say, I want you to just go to the parallel universe where you're not acting that way with this person, or your situation is changing. And it doesn't happen overnight, but everyone, it works. You can shift the energy of where you are at any time by the powerful visualization. And I also believe on the Ho'oponopono, the I am sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. That's a powerful mantra.
You taught me that, and I say it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I say it a lot now. And here's the other thing that I've spent some time talking with you about is dream interpretation.
Yes.
Now, I had a dream, and I'm not making this up. It was weird. I've talked to you a lot about my fish pond.
Yes.
Right. And trying to keep my koi fish from getting eaten by raccoons and birds in it and all kinds of stuff. And I had this dream last week that I woke up and I went out and there was no water running. It was like that everything had stopped. And I went to look in the waterfall, and it was filled. All of the water were dead birds, dead white, all shapes and sizes of birds, white with their face down, and they were just dead. And I was like, this is a weird dream. What does a dead white bird symbol? I mean, it was just, instead of water, they were just
the water was vanished, the birds were dead. And I would say that maybe you had a little trepidation about things that were happening. And because the white birds would symbolize to me your spirit. And maybe someone had hurt your feelings, or, you were just struggling. And water is like 80% of what our body is made up with, that keeps us alive. And so it's like, and we all feel in this, with the stuff that's going on politically and out there, we feel like, really, can I take another moment of this? So I would say to you to breathe and to just see happy stuff on TV. You know,
That,
sometimes I go to Netflix. I've been watching some of that. Uh, I don't know if it's on Netflix or not. I think it's on the BBC. Jonathan Creek, which is like a pretty funny Brit whodunit thing and stuff like that. And I would say that you've been doing a great job of holding your head up and doing all sorts of amazing stuff. But you might have just hit like you watched something on TV that just tore at your heart. And
well,
so there's nothing bad going to happen to you, but I want you to believe. Okay.
yeah,
Does
I
that make sense, sweetie?
it does. I there is no limit to things that I'm seeing right now that tear my heart apart.
I know.
You know, I mean, it's unbelievable.
And so maybe we could send out, and if by sending out a consciousness of love and peace and try to wrap the world in pink bubbles, because pink bubbles take away negativity. And maybe one of your things, and let me know if you do it, there could be a group consciousness to just bring peace.
You know, I like that.
Mhm.
I like the pink bubble thing.
Yeah, it works all the time. I went to this one hair salon and I had to stop going because all the hairdressers were arguing with each other in 50 million different languages, and I go there to relax. And so finally, I said to the one woman, "Could you put so and so in a pink bubble?" And she was, oh, and she did it. And then she called me up. She said, "We're not arguing anymore, you know." And the pink bubble negates the negativity. So it works. Colors are real important in life.
You want to know something really interesting as you said this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking on the feed. A a pink hue has overcome
Oh, wow.
has taken over the screen. It's fascinating. I've never seen anything like that happen.
Oh, wow. I am, that's the angels are giving a shout out. And, that would be a combination of Archangel Muriel and Archangel Jophiel. And they're all about living from the heart. And Jophiel is all about clearing the negativity away. So.
Wow. So I've never this. I'm seeing you in
Yeah.
perfect, but on the stream, it's this pink hue is just radiating out from you.
Oh, I am excited.
It's kind of there's almost like maybe there's an angel or something off to your left.
I am sure. Yes, they're always there. Thank God Almighty.
So, Mike, next thing I want to ask you and talk to you about is your near-death experience, because that fascinates a lot of people.
Yeah, I could not get dying right, Jeff. I did it like 5 times. I could not get it right. It was like, go back, girl.
So, what was the experience like? What do you recall it being? What happened while you were?
Well, but before I did my first, dying, I was trying to tell the doctors, I'm dying, and they'd say, no. I even called up my cousin who has the gift, and I said, Nancy, I think I'm going to die. And she said, oh, Susan, nobody wants to hear that. You're not going to die. And I go to the hospital and they say, oh, it's just a little cold. I said, no, I knew way ahead of time, because the one thing when I get really ill or something, my sense of smell is exaggerated to the point where if the neighbor down the street opened up peanut butter, I could smell it. I could just smell everything, and it would make me physically ill. And so finally, they take me seriously, and I'm put in. I was diagnosed with heart failure, and my heart was working at my heart muscle was exhausted, because it turns out my pulse had been defective or overactive from maybe my teens when my dad died. They think it was like a record that got stuck on 78. And so it just overworked my heart. So I only had 6% of it. And when I died the first couple times, I can remember my my dad was there, and who was passed, and my mother and my great aunt Rose and my brother's deceased father-in-law Kevin. I don't know why he was there. He always loved to party with us. And when I coded, the nurses there were not, they really didn't believe I had heart failure and I was going to die. And so nobody was coming when the call button was rung and someone was screaming. They just ignored it. And finally, someone ran into the hallway and screamed, "She's dying." And a doctor came down and brought me back. And then I was, I can remember seeing myself above my body. And my father goes, "Susan, quit being so stubborn. Get back into your body. This is not supposed to be happening now." And I said, "Well, I'm really mad at the nurse. I'm mad at all the hospital personnel. I want them to feel bad. Susan, just get into your body." And I was doing this motion where there's a motion with your foot when your brain is dying, that it looks like you have motion, but it's very negative to, you know. And so I did that on purpose. And the nurse who did all this was screaming, "Make her stop it." And the doctor's yelling, "It's all your fault. She's dead." And I'm going, "Oh, this is good. This is really good." And finally, my mother says, "Damn it, Susan, get into your body now." And I go, "Okay, all right." And I got back in. And then, you know, there was a lot of yelling and screaming going around. And I was just pleased at Sponge because she was getting in trouble. And the next day, this head of the director of nurses came in. She looked like Cinderella's fairy godmother from the cartooning. And she's taking my things. And again, you know, I suddenly told her, I really didn't want to eat or drink anything because I said, "I'm going to die one more time again." And she goes, "No, no, no." And she walked out of the room and I coded again. And this time I just wanted to go to sleep. I just wanted, you know, I just wanted peace because this was this dying thing and coming back was, you know, it was pretty exhausting. I was, you know, tired. I wanted a nap. And then everybody's rushing in there and they moved me to a room where they could watch me from the outside because they just never knew. They couldn't stop me from dying. And so, you know, finally I had someone call my daughter because, you know, at that point, you know, I didn't want her to worry, but I wasn't stopping dying. So I thought maybe she might want to come. And they were taking me. I had one more other incident. And I can remember I was traveling at that time. I was traveling to oceans, and I was in Hawaii, and that was a lot of fun. I was in Maui, and there were a lot of flowers and perfuming kind of things I was smelling there, and I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. And then one of the last times I died, they were taking me to the cath lab, and it was a big argument. And they wanted me to sign this and that, and in case something went wrong. And I said, "No, I don't want you." I said, "You know, you should be doing a right calf instead of a left calf with me. My father told me, or I'll die." And they go, "Well, we haven't seen this father of yours that you keep talking about." And I said, "Well, he doesn't come in when you all are around. He can't stand this hospital anyway." And, you know, and they kept saying, "No, it has to be a left calf." I said, "You're going to kill me if you do the left calf, and I won't sign this." And what happened was I was knocked out, and they took my hand and they signed the permission thing because I told them if they did that, I'd drop dead on them just to annoy them. And they went into the cath lab, and they started immediately to do the left calf, and I coded for oh, uh,
Are you
are you
still?
there?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're here.
I can't. Boy, it's all purple. That's very cool.
Oh,
Can you see me?
yeah, I can see you fine. You're
This
still you're
this
still
is this
radiating pink.
this is really cool. All the purple. That's all the angels right there. And I was flown by the helicopter because the doctor said, damn it, she said she would die if we went and signed her name and did this procedure, and that it had to be a right cath, get her out of here. And they flew me to Hopkins. I had the last helicopter before a major storm occurred. And I got there, and at that time I was traveling in and out of, it was like Alice in Wonderland. I was hitting these little pods, and I would go down, and I was really small, then I was really large, and then the different pods that I would go in like an Alice in Wonderland world. I went to like Vietnam and Cambodia. I was walking through a lot of bamboo. There was a lot of African music going on, and I remember at one time going, why can't I go back to Hawaii or like Tahiti or something? And I heard this voice said, don't you want to see how everything started in the world? Don't you want to get this? And I said, well, I'll never have to travel to Africa or anything, or Vietnam, because I'm getting the full-blown tour. And it was very magical. I was in and out of these different Southeast Asian dimensions, and all through Africa. I saw all the animals, and they kind of came up to me, and it was they were just like they could hear me. I talk to animals. I drive some people crazy because there was, when I was in Florida last year, I was staying at a home, and there were these ducks, and I started suddenly talking to the duck Miguel, and I yelled Miguel, and this duck ran up, and it actually sat beside me on the bench, and it would sit there, and I would give it food, but I talked to animals. So in this near-death experience, I was, the elephants, the tigers, whatever, and they would just cuddle with me, and I was talking to them, and that was that's some of my and when I was in Hopkins, when they moved me to a room, I could look out and see the original dome from Johns Hopkins. So, I challenge everybody to go and look at it online. It's very mystical. And I could see blue orbs, but I really had felt at that point when I had been taken, my spirit or something, taken by the Palladians and dipped in gold underneath that dome. I know it sounds a little odd, but that's, and I made, they thought I should be in like a rehab center for a year or so. I was out of the hospital in 10 days. My heart failure, I've totally recovered. My doctor is so proud as punch. She lectures that I'm a miracle. And my entire heart has rebuilt itself as if I never had a heart attack, much less died 5 times.
Wow. So I'm going to ask, I love the story. I'm going to ask you to just try shifting the computer a little bit. Just
like
tilt
this?
it. Yeah.
That way?
No, try going the other way.
Okay. Is that better?
No, no, it's just, you just are just leave it right there. You're just awash of pink. It's just,
yay.
I mean,
that's my angels.
It's just, it's really fascinating. I've never, you were started talking and you were talking about pink, and all of a sudden
well, when I was talking all about those angels, your whole screen went like purple with angels that I could see inside. I couldn't see you, but I could see little different fabrics of
wow,
very great spirits.
Oh, are you able to see me now?
Yes, I can see you now.
Wow, I think it's just fascinating, because whenever I talk to you, all this stuff comes up, and what is she saying something?
No, no,
Oh.
just
Y
you can hear them thinking. They're not speaking though.
oh, they're not? I'm just here I can hear them?
Yes.
So, the thing about going to all of the pods and all
Yeah.
of the country and all that all happened. Did it feel like a long time, but then when you finally came to, it was a short period of time?
Well, it was a long time,
Well,
but because I was put in a self-induced coma to keep me from having heart attacks. So
wow.
it was at least, it seemed shorter to me than it really was.
Mm.
And the one thing that I remember when I came to and could talk was that there was a message that kept going over and over and over, and the angels told me to be so over it. And so when I gave my first talk a couple months after these near-death experiences, my angels, because when I give a talk, I never write anything down. I use the same description for 25 years, and this one people still come because it's never the same lecture, even though I use the same description, because I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I just get there and I talk. And so my angels had said, you need to tell people the message to be so over it. And I was like, that's just crazy. And so I'm there and I'm doing my thing, and then I keep hearing, Susan, you're not listening. It was Michael. He was bugging the bejeebies out of me, and I'm arguing in my head with him. Not now. And finally, I told people that I had this message, and it was from my near-death experience, and I have to tell them all. There were about 120 people in the room to be so over it. And the next day, the next couple days, in my email, there must have been 100 of those 125 people said, were you directing that to me? And so the angels know. And so I never argued with them from that point on. If they tell me to tell somebody something, I tell them. Sometimes people get annoyed, because they want me to validate something that they shouldn't be doing or they shouldn't be feeling. And I can't do it. But I will back them even if they don't listen to me. I'll always be there.
Yeah, I know that I've had to just plan on hearing whatever you tell me, and have to just go with it, because you don't always tell me what I want to hear.
Mm-hmm. But I tell you what you need to hear.
This is true. So your website susanlynne.com?
It's www.mediumlink.com.
Medium link.
Yeah. mediumlink.com.
And is there anything that you think that we need to have discussed that didn't? I tried to touch on all of the aspects of what I talk about with you, from the the numerology and astrology and the near death and the multiple dimensions. Is there anything that we missed?
I'm a super duper manifester. People would say even my mother was a great manifester. Even my Nana, God bless her soul, she'd have a nickel and then win $500 at the card game, that to just believe, just to try to, what we think is what we grow. Don't put negativity out into the world, and just believe in, and to manifest things. So, to always be looking forward. Never look back unless you want to see how far you've come. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I just want to ask this, because of what's going on right now.
Right.
There is a lot of negative reaction to the negativity, which is adding to the negativity.
Yes. It's like a little rock that turns into a boulder that's squashing people. And so what we have to do is you just have to, in a way, be so over it. Just decide that you are not going to allow any particular relative, job, political situation to rain on your parade. You are going to rise above it and just be and just breathe the best we can. Some days are easier than others.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
well, Susan, this has been great. We've been on for an hour.
Wow.
And
we need to do it again. Maybe the next time we could even do a group consciousness, or if anybody calls in with questions or something.
Hey, that's a good idea. And I do something where I take phone calls. Okay. I wanted to kind of introduce you and give you lots of, the breadth a little bit of what you do, because all of the things could be an entire subject, like the, angels,
right. Yeah.
or numerology, or.
Yeah. Well, just met, I can help people manifest what they want if they just listen and believe. Because we can. It's that shifting the energy, going to that parallel universe. So I'm excited.
Yeah. All right. Well, Susan, thank you for spending this time with me. I'm going to close out the show. This will stay on my Facebook page.
Yay.
Forever. And then I'll make a copy of it, put it on my YouTube channel, and people can see it there. Also, people can listen to it just as if it were a podcast.
Okay. I am impressed. I am so impressed.
So I'm going to close the show, but hang on and we'll talk a little bit after.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay. Here we go.